of the rod I have drawn one line, and then when you twist it, what will happen? This end of the line will still remain here, and this end of the line will come here, so that this line will be like this. The line will look like this after you twist. So what has happened is, it has got twisted, and suppose I draw a line like this, then this angle is going to be theta. That is the angle, that is the amount by which it has got twisted. The end has got twisted by an amount equal to theta at a length of L. If the length is less, the twist could be less. And the length is 0, twist is not there, 0. Okay, so now these are all the different parameters that are involved in this particular sketch, where there is a rod of length L is taken, it has got radius R, and you have applied a torque T, and because of that the deformation is theta. So under this condition, what are the parameters and how they are related? So you can write down this: T upon IP equal to F shear upon R equal to G theta, G delta or theta upon L. So this becomes the design equation for this case. T upon IP equal to F shear upon R equal to G theta upon L. And again, what are the terms? T stands for torque, applied torque. What is IP? It is a polar moment of inertia. Moment of inertia of polar type. So again, something which is requiring revision. Last time we have seen moment of inertia. This time also it is moment of inertia, but it is polar moment of inertia. What it means is, now this cross section is circular. Last time we have written moment of inertia for a circle like this of diameter d as pi d raised to 4 upon 64 in the last case. Now this is a moment of inertia about axis xx. If this is the axis yy, then it is still the same, formula is still the same, pi d raised to 4 upon 64. And what is moment of inertia about zz? Where is zz? Zz is perpendicular to these two. So this plane I am showing perpendicular to the board, that axis is the zz axis. So the moment of inertia about zz axis is going to be, it is the addition of the two. So that makes it pi d raised to 4 upon 32. Now this one, zz, is also called as IP, that is the polar moment of inertia. So the polar moment of inertia is this, which is about axis zz. Now what is the meaning of all this? Ix is this means what? Iyy is this means what? Izz is this means what? Of course you have to go back and read and revise. I need not explain, but then still let me tell you what it is. In the earlier example, when it was like this, that time it was about xx, and what was xx? Xx was the neutral axis. If you remember last time, xx was the position of the neutral axis, because that time the beam was like this, which was having cross section like this, and which was bent like this, and that time this was the neutral axis. And about neutral axis, what happens at the neutral axis? Bending like this is the neutral axis. At neutral axis, there is neither compressive stress nor tensile stress. So that is the neutral axis, and neutral axis is like this. That means the moment of inertia about the neutral axis is this. So in this case, you bend like this, and then this is xx. So moment of inertia about axis is like this. Now if this is yy, if you are taking moment of inertia about yy, means what? I am bending this way. So now the moment of inertia is taken about axis yy. Okay, and it is still the same situation, so it will remain the same. Now when you do this, now where is the neutral axis? When you are twisting like this, you will realize that the top fiber is twisted by this much, then somewhere here the deflection is this much, and at the center, the line at the center When you twist, that line will be unaffected by the twist. So something similar to neutral axis. So therefore this is perpendicular. So the neutral axis is like this in this situation. It is in this way. And this is the direction of z axis, and the moment of inertia about z axis is like this, which is also called as polar moment of inertia. That is the meaning of this, which I still want all of you to go back and revise. Then R is the radius, F shear is the shear stress that is developed, G is the, what is G? E was moment, Young's modulus. So this is the modulus of elasticity. E was modulus of elasticity, this is modulus of rigidity. So like in place of E now, G has come. Theta is this angle of twist, L is the length of the rod. So this is the meaning of the formula. Now if you just equate this much part, then that will tell you that F shear is equal to torque upon IP divided by R. So this is the formula for torsional stress. Torsional stress in this case is shear stress. So the torsional shear stress is given by this equation, and this is the background of that. Now let's take the next 6th number, that is the crushing stress. Now what is a crushing stress? Suppose there is a rod like this of radius R. It's a rod of radius R, or maybe I'll say diameter D. There is a rod of diameter D. It is resting on this surface, and you are applying a load like this. So it is something like this, resting, and you are applying a load this way. So when you apply load like this, then here the contact surface between this object and this object, when it is under load, then there is a chance of failure of this surface, which is in contact. So this surface failure, if it takes place, then that kind of failure is called as a crushing failure, where it is getting crushed. Say for example, if you think of this as a chalk, the white chalk which we use on a board. So that chalk, if you hold like this and press, then what will happen? This end of the chalk, you will notice that it is getting crushed. Okay, this will convert into powder. So that is something similar to crushing stress. So that crushing stress is given by load on, again same thing, this, in this situation. Now depending on the situation, the formula will change. So if I draw a diagram of a rivet like last time, so what we have done, we are having two plates connected to each other by a riveted joint. We are applying a load P, and this time, last time we saw how it fails over here by shear stress. Now we are thinking of same joint, but its failure under crushing stress. How it will fail under crushing stress, and what will be the amount of crushing stress. Now if you just now see what is crushing stress, and as I said just now, this is the place where the crushing stress is induced. Crushing stress is there at the contact. Now in this case, where will be the crushing stress? If I draw, let's say, the top view, I'll draw it here. So how you draw it is, this is the diameter D. I have not drawn the head. I have just drawn this diameter D. The stem diameter I have drawn. Then there is a plate that is drawn. One plate. Below that there is another plate, like this. And you are pulling these plates like this with a rivet in between. So something like this. It is like this. Okay. So when you are pulling like this, what happens is this rivet on one side will be under stress. So if I see this half part and this half part, then it is under stress. So if I hold it this way, then the part which is curved part, which is in contact, that is going to be stress. So if I say show it here, then from this to this surface is in contact with one plate, and the lower side is in contact with the other, this plate, this side. So these two circular surfaces which are there, this curved surface is half curved surface is in contact with one plate, and this curved surface is in contact with the plate on this side. Okay, so the area which you have to take now is this area. So if I mention thickness is T, diameter is D, then you can say that, suppose I draw it this way, okay, and then this is one plate, this is one side of the plate, and then this is on the other side of the plate, on this side like this. So this part, and on this side, this part, curvature part, that is under the stress. So if you draw it here, then what is the surface area of this curved surface? The area I'll write here, area is equal to pi d. Pi d is this full circumference, but we want to take half. So pi d by 2 into L. Or rather T, not S, T. Pi d by 2 means only half side, pi d by 2. This is pi d by 2, and the other dimension is T. So pi d by 2, this is diameter D, so this is pi d by 2, and this thickness T. So that is coming in contact like this, pi d by 2. So that is the area, and then the load is P. So if I write here, F crushing is equal to P upon pi d into T by 2. Pi d into T by 2. Okay. So this becomes the formula. I'll write maybe somewhere else, maybe here. Pi d into T by 2. But then what happens is, here the load is not constant. Although we show here that the load is like this and like this, that means on this curved surface, like this, on this curved surface we say load is applied, P load is applied. That means the cylindrical part which is there to this cylindrical part or the rivet, the surface is in contact, the surface of the plate is in contact like this, and therefore we have taken this area pi d by 2 into thickness T. But then the load is not constant P here. Why it is not constant? Because if you see the curvature, this surface here, okay, then the load P is of course here, but then at the end, suppose this is the surface and you are applying a load like this, then the intensity will be very less here. The effect of P will be more here and it is almost zero here, because this is where the surface is almost along the line of the force. So this force will not apply any force here on the surface, but it will apply a lot of force at this point. So if I draw the distribution diagram of this force, I'll just show only one side. That means this is the rod, and we are talking about only this side of the surface, only half. And the distribution of force, although we call it as P, that P is not constant here. So I am now showing the distribution of force in the form of a graph. So this is the graphical representation of a force. So this is where P is 0, here also P is 0, and here P is 1.5 times what you have applied. So when you apply P, because of this curvature, at this point its effect is very high, maybe 1.5 times more, because here it is 0, so somewhere it gets distributed. So the distribution is such that it is 0 and 0 on these two sides, and it is maximum here. Okay, so this is the distribution of force. Now when this is the distribution of force, what is to be done is, the load which we have taken here has to be taken like 1.5 times P, because the maximum load is this. We have to take the maximum load divided by pi by 2 into dt. Pi by 2 into dt. So crushing stress formula is this, where we have substituted the value of P as 1.5P, and this is still the same. Now can you simplify this further? You can simplify this because this 1.5 will cancel with this. Why? Because pi is 3.14, so almost 3. Approximately this is 3. 3 by 2 is 1.5, and this is also 1.5. So approximately this goes. So the final formula for crushing stress is P upon dt. So final formula for crushing stress is P upon dt. Crushing stress P upon dt in this situation. In this situation it is this. For this situation crushing stress is this. For this situation crushing stress formula is this. And what is crushing stress? It is a stress which is developed at the contact surface when they are under compressive load. Okay, so that is crushing stress. Now we will take the next stress. Next is bearing stress. Next is bearing stress. Now what is the bearing stress? Now again bearing stress is something similar to last time, but some difference is there. Now I draw a similar figure like last time. So in last situation, the stress that was developed at the contact surface at this place was already called as F crushing, and it was P upon pi d square by 4 last time. Now what happens is, this is again almost similar, but the difference is here this part is having movement. See, last time the crushing stress was like this. It was a static stress under the action of a load. The crushing stress is developed there. Now I am doing the same thing, but in addition to the load, it is rubbing. There is a load also, and the load is, there is rubbing action under the action of load. So rubbing also is there, and the load also is there. So under this situation, the stress that is developed at the contact point, that is called as a bearing stress, and the formula for bearing stress is still the same. Bearing stress formula is still the same. Only thing is, this is a worse situation than crushing stress. Crushing stress is better, bearing stress is even more dangerous. So the value of bearing stress will be lesser what it can bear than crushing stress. Okay, so for example, if a part is going to fail at a crushing stress of, let's say, 100 units, then it will fail at a bearing stress of 50 units, lesser value, because that the failure will happen earlier if there is a load as well as movement. Here there is no movement for crushing, so the failure will not take place comparatively earlier. Okay, so bearing stress is a stress at the contact point under movement. Formula still is the same. So even in the case of a bearing, even in the case of a riveted joint, if you see the way riveted joint is drawn, so this is the one plate and this is another plate, and you are pulling the two plates like this. There is a rivet here, so this rivet is having some stress here. Now suppose now in this case there is no movement, but had there been any movement, then there could be a case of, suppose you are doing it like this and there is some movement also there, then there will be a bearing stress job. You can see one simple example. All of you must be, let's say when you are traveling in a train. So in the train when you hold the handle, okay, that handle is like this. Okay, you are holding the handle like this and there is a load as well as there is a movement. So you will see that here there is a lot of wearing out that has taken place. Now this wearing out takes place is because there is a load and also there is a movement. So the material is failing here. If you see the worn out that is taken place, that is a bearing failure of the material, here also and here also. So that is the case. Accordingly, the formula of course still is same as the crushing stress, but the effect is bearing. So that is called the bearing stress. Okay. So I think we have taken different types of stresses today. We have started with tensile stress, then we saw compressive stress, shear stress, then we saw bending stress, which is consisting of tensile and compressive. Then after that we saw torsional shear stress, which is again kind of shear stress, but that is developed because of the torque twisting. So that is a torsional shear stress we saw. After that we saw the crushing kind of stress and then the bearing stress. So these are the different types of stresses that are developed. There is also something that is called as, I'll just write here, principal stresses.